My neighbor moved my property markers and stole 8 feet of my land, so I took back everything he'd built on it. I bought that house because of the backyard. Quarter acre of flat land, perfect for the garden my wife had always wanted. We measured it 3 times before closing, walked the property lines, checked everything. 6 months later, Greg moved in next door. Within a week, he was complaining, said my fence was on his property, said he'd had it surveyed and I was encroaching by 8 feet. I pulled out my closing documents, showed him the official survey from my purchase. He laughed, said surveys can be wrong, that his was more recent. The next morning, I found my fence posts pulled out of the ground. My chest got tight seeing them scattered across my lawn. Greg had already started digging, said he was putting in a pool on land that was legally mine. I called my lawyer. She said I needed to get a new survey done immediately. The surveyor came out 2 days later, found something interesting. The original property markers had been moved. Someone had dug them up and relocated them 8 feet onto my property. The surveyor could tell because the soil was freshly disturbed and the markers were at the wrong depth. Greg had literally stolen my land by moving metal stakes in the ground. I showed him the new survey, showed him the evidence that the markers had been tampered with. He shrugged, said prove I did it, then went back to digging his pool. That's when I decided Greg would learn what happens when you steal from someone who keeps records. My closing survey had photos of the original markers, date stamped, location stamped, GPS coordinates that matched the surveyor's findings exactly. Greg's markers were 8 feet off. I filed a police report, property tampering, criminal trespass. Then I filed a civil suit, land theft, destruction of property, cost of remediation, but I wasn't finished. Greg's pool construction required permits. I called the county office, asked to see his approved plans. The plans showed the pool entirely on his property, not 8 feet onto mine. He'd filed fraudulent documents. The county inspector came out the next week, found the pool foundation sitting square on my legal property line. Work stopped immediately. Greg got fined $15,000 for permit violations, had to tear out everything he'd built, the concrete, the plumbing, the electrical work, all of it. Perfect. The civil case took 8 months. Greg tried to argue that the original survey was wrong, that his markers were authentic. My lawyer brought in the surveyor, showed the photos proving marker tampering, showed the GPS coordinates, showed the disturbed soil analysis. Judge ruled in my favor. Greg owed me $34,000 in damages, plus legal fees. He tried to appeal, lost again. But here's the best part. During discovery, we found emails between Greg and his wife, discussing exactly how they'd move the markers, celebrating when they thought they'd gotten away with it. Those emails turned the civil case criminal. Greg got charged with fraud, property tampering, filing false documents with the county. Plea deal gave him 18 months probation and 200 hours community service, plus a felony on his record that shows up every time someone runs a background check. His wife filed for divorce 6 months later, said she didn't sign up to be married to a convicted felon. The house went up for sale during the divorce proceedings. I bought it at auction for 20% under market value. Previous owner has felony conviction for property crimes isn't a great selling point apparently. Knocked down the fence between the properties. Now I have half an acre instead of a quarter. My wife's garden is twice as big as we'd originally planned. Greg's living in an apartment across town. Has to disclose his felony on every rental application. He tried to steal 8 feet of my property. Ended up losing his house, his wife, his clean record, all because he thought moving some metal stakes in the ground would be easy money. Some people learn expensive lessons. Greg's lesson cost him everything.